Hey there, everyone. Hi. Happy Thursday. It's Thursday again. It's Thursday. It's 8 o'clock on the East Coast, and we are reviving Must See TV. I shouldn't say that. That's like an NBC thing. I really shouldn't say that. But you know what? That phrase came from watching The Cosby Show. Millions of people tuned in every Thursday night at 8 p.m. to watch The Cosby Show, watched the Huxtables do whatever it was they were going to do that week. And so that's experience has been so enriching and dynamic in that between the actors who perform the roles and bringing the fan fiction that I've written to life, my heart just blows up in my chest a million times over. And then the panelists who have been on so far and the ones to come, just the most amazing people. Almost 8 billion people on planet Earth, and I've got the best of the best on my panel every Monday and Thursday night, and I'm just so thankful and grateful. How y'all doing? How are y'all doing? We have on YouTube. I think I'm still here. Am I still here? Laura, give me a thumbs up if I'm still on, because I just lost the signal for a second. Okay. So people are like this and this and this. Okay. So we're back in it. What I was saying is that we're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're just rolling with it because, during the pandemic, during COVID, the internet is doing whatever the heck it wants to do. Whatever the internet feels like it's doing, we bend at its will. And so that's, if you see a little blip, that's what it is. Anyway, we're on live on those different places. You can interact via the chat, via the comment section, leave comments. Tell us how you're doing. Tell us how you're doing during this pandemic. Tell us how you're doing, with the protests and the demonstrations. And in this time, as we take back America, we use our voices, we use our vote and claim our freedom, claim justice, claim equality. Tell us how you're doing. Leave comments in the chat so that we can talk to you real time. We have quite a few people who have watched the series so far and who have engaged with us. We had an article written about us in the in Style Magazine, the Houston edition of Style Magazine, which was really exciting. I want to thank Prairie View A&M University for writing a piece about us also and putting it on their website, and all my colleagues who've been so supportive. But there's someone in particular tonight I want to bring up to the screen because I am taking some time to spotlight my interns, my students who are working with me to make this project the success that it is. And, on Monday, we put a spotlight on Laura Burks, who is running the show from behind the scenes. Tonight, I want to put a spotlight on Amarachi Ade. Amarachi is she's a junior rising senior at Prairie View, I believe. I think when she comes on, she's going to tell us what her classification is. But I've had her in 2 or 3 of my classes, and this woman she's the next show business entrepreneur. Like, she can do all the things. She's a great actress. She can write, she can direct, but she also has a business savvy about herself, which what inspired me to ask her to be my publicist for this event. So press releases, getting the word out, beating the drum, getting us interviews. We were on a podcast 2 days ago. I just want to thank Amarachi Ade, and let's bring her up so that I can have some time with Miss Ma'am. Hey, sis.
Hi, guys. How's everyone doing?
Oh, is the mic? Oh, there you are. I was going to say, I hope you're not muted. Okay. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Today's been a very hot day, but I'm happy to be alive.
Right.
And that's enough. That is enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a hot day here. It was in the 90s again today in Houston, huh? Yeah. So tell us about who you are and what you do at Prairie View. Tell us about, what your goals are. Tell us about who you are.
Okay, hi guys. My name is Okedeyi. I will be a senior in the fall at Prairie View. I am majoring in mass communications and I have a minor in theater. And kind of like what TDV said earlier, I want to do everything. This is my first time working as a publicist, so I'm very nervous, but I'm getting the hang of it. I've learned to just meet people where they're at. I want to go into writing. I want to go into fashion. I want to go into acting. Just I want to have my hand in everything because I feel like I have an influence and I can influence people wherever I'm at. So I'm so excited to be working on this.
I completely see that happening. In the classes that we've had together, where the production courses, even though the focus has always been with camera, with audio, just getting the filmmaking component down, you've always asked questions about managers and agents and how do I network and where, film festivals and, who do I go see and what contacts I need to make. Tell us about, what truly inspires that business sense that that sharp business sense that you have.
I believe that everything you do has a business side and has like a media side. It's very easy to understand the media side with social media because it's always in front of us. But that business side and where the money is being made, that is the most important because that's where the jobs are and that's where the information is. So I feel like when you understand the business side and when you understand the people who work in the business side, then you can navigate through the industry smoothly.
Yeah. Yeah. Who inspires you? Who are some of the people that you're looking at in the industry that seems to be leading the way for you?
Ava DuVernay, of course. Jordan Peele. Who else? I'm honestly trying to research more people because especially after this whole George Floyd situation, I realized a lot of people who you think are on your side are not. So I want to actually get to know the people who are and find out who they are because I know they're out there. I love Viola Davis. I love Angelina Jolie, but I can't really say I look up to them because everyone has their flaws and everyone is different. But I look up to my father. I look up to my professors. Not right now. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I love Jordan Peele. I believe whatever he's doing out there, he needs to keep doing it. So, as well as Ava DuVernay, showing people things that we don't always see, and shining light on places in the industry that need to be highlighted more.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, and I've been watching your work for a good long while. I think we've been working together for a good year now, and you definitely give me some Issa Rae vibes also.
Oh, I love Issa too. I forgot to add.
Yeah, you definitely give me that sort of, I'm going to make some stuff happen by any means necessary. I'm going to grab this, I'm going to grab that, and we're going to go make a movie. I love how you just turned your head and just, checked whoever came in the room just now. That definitely had a boss kind of texture to you. Were like,
because I was like, is he serious? No.
Well, thank you for coming on for a little bit tonight. I just appreciate you. I just want to shine a little light on you. And those of you who are out there watching or will watch later, if you're not watching live, this young lady's about to graduate in a smooth year. And if you need someone who's business savvy, but also has a great eye for the art, Amarachi's your girl. All right. Thank you, sis. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
No problem. Now get away. Go get some work done. I'm just kidding. All right. So, tonight, we're reading a really interesting chapter. So far in the series, when asked the question, who's your favorite Huxtable and which Huxtable are you most like? Vanessa came up quite a bit for various reasons. Many of us, I've mentioned Issa Rae because of her Awkward Black Girl series that launched her career. Vanessa was the first awkward Black girl in popular culture and television, as far as I'm concerned. And that, here's this person that kind of lived in the in-between. And on the first night of the show, of our series, Darnell Walker, when asked the question, he said the character he most favored was Vanessa because he felt like she needed love. And even though we fell out laughing and thought it was humorous to think about Vanessa in that way. It does. When you think about the Cosby Show and you go back and you watch older episodes, you see someone who was struggling to find her way in, whether it was, pleading for a family dog in the early series, in the early episodes, the early seasons, to figuring out what her fashion was, to dating boys, to and always being a step behind or in the shadow of her older siblings. So tonight, the chapter we're going to read, really probably more so than most characters, is a wide left departure from what we expect, but probably not too terribly void of Vanessa-isms, in the sense that I wanted to give her a platform and a voice that was rich and hopefully deep and fulfilling for Vanessa. Tonight we're going to read chapter 5, Vanessa. And our actors reading the characters include Dahleah Moore. She's playing the role of Vanessa. You've seen her now, 3 times on the series. And she's a self-taught makeup artist. She's a small business owner. She's a psych major at the University of Houston downtown. She has a background in television, theater, speech and debate. And she's an avid supporter of Black Lives Matter and all things concerning the African diaspora. She's an amazing, amazing talent in the role of Vanessa, and I'm so thankful for her. And we also have Velicia Tolliver in the role of Clair. Velicia is a fellow cohort member of mine in the PhD program at Prairie View A&M University. We're both achieving our doctorates in education leadership. And I spent a lot of time with this woman, and she's amazing. She has spent many years teaching and working at schools, not only here in the States, but also in Abu Dhabi, in China, in Kenya, in Ghana. And, she has her tentacles all over the globe and teaching young people how to be better versions of themselves. And I'm just so thankful to have her on as Clair. We're going to go ahead and dive into chapter 5, Vanessa. Clinging to the dry towel after all the dishes have been washed, Vanessa is standing in the kitchen, waiting to speak to her mother alone. All the siblings have taken a room to clean and replace now that the repast is over. The last of the guests have made their way home. And through the somber quiet, the Huxtables clean their home together. They have stopped wondering, asking where Denise may be. They already know she's not coming back. Not surprising, but not fair, thinks Vanessa. She begins to muse aloud.
Denise always managed to get out of doing chores. She charmed Dad into letting her slide. She slid through most things in life. Chores, school, jobs, marriage, motherhood. They all thought marrying Martin and raising Olivia would give Denise reason enough to be a responsible adult. Why am I talking about Denise? And why am I talking out loud?
Vanessa looks around the kitchen, back down the back hallway to the dining room and up the back stairways to make sure no one heard her. Thankfully, no one was in earshot of Vanessa, which was rare in this house. Claire backs into the kitchen from the living room with 2 large crystal platters in her hands. They need to be washed. And Vanessa, certain her job of cleaning the kitchen was over, is deflated when she sees that she has 2 more platters to clean. Looking at her long, water-wrinkled fingers, Vanessa realizes her hands are shaking.
This was your father and my first set of china. And no, I'll not be setting them down into your shaking hands. Vanessa, what's wrong?
Oh, it's nothing, Mom. Just a little jittery. Might be too much caffeine or something of that sort.
It's nothing of that sort. You've been drinking black coffee since Baltimore and the days of the wretched.
Mom, why again with the wretched?
Oh, because it's fun. It's big fun. My child, are you okay?
No. Mom, Dad's gone, and
I,
I
I
don't know
know.
how to.
I know. It's okay. It's okay. Your father was ready. Even though we were not, he was tired. He was weak. I mean, the strongest man that I'd ever known, that I'd ever loved. But he had grown weak. He was ready, even if we were not. And we have to be thankful that he was even given to us.
Claire swallows back tears to appear strong for the delicate Vanessa. Vanessa was the most emotionally fragile of the Huxtable pack. She needs her father more than ever because he always gave an open ear. Vanessa feared her mother at times. She feared her mother's strength and that she would too have to be as strong one day. Vanessa wondered, would that day ever come? But today, she, in the embrace of her mother, misses her father.
Yeah, well, Dad and I had an understanding that was never spoken. That that I needed to feel beautiful, to be given care. He was mindful of my struggle to find my beauty amongst the ranks of the Huxtable women. I wasn't the oldest nor the youngest. I wasn't hip or stylish like Denise. I was intelligent, but I wasn't as brilliant as Sandra. My chestnut hue wasn't compared to Denise or Sandra. And my natural hair was like a sculpture. It wasn't bouncy or flowy like Rudy's. I was just Vanessa. Hell, I couldn't even be the middle child because that distinction belonged to Theo. And though I was the middle of all the girls, I existed in a dullness that only my father found special. Dad, Dad saw me as a prize a man should earn. From Robert to Dabness and all the men in between, he contested their interest in me by interrogating them or sizing them up in ways that none of the other girls' boyfriends had to endure. I felt honored by my father. I felt loved and protected by my father. And no man was worthy of me if he couldn't honor me in all of the ways that Daddy saw special in me. Yes, my hands are shaking. Can we go somewhere more private to talk?
Uh, there's no one here. Is the kitchen not private enough?
Actually, no. Um, it's an important legal matter, and I'd feel more comfortable talking in your office. But
Oh,
but you
can
know
it?
what? It's fine. It could probably wait. In fact, it should wait. Not now, not today. It can wait.
Well, can it wait?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Yes, yes, it can wait.
No, no, it cannot wait. I can see that it can't wait. Vanessa, what's wrong?
Mom, please.
Vanessa, I can't do this all night. In fact, I can't do this at all right now. Now, you're going to have to talk to me, or not. But now.
Well, can we please just go in your office?
Yeah, of course, if it'll help. Let's go in there.
Extends her arm. Claire extends her arm towards the office down the hall, off from the dining room. It's her home office. Vanessa makes the long, slow walk down the short hallway as if marching to her pending doom. Vanessa goes into the office first, and Claire follows close behind. She closes the door. Claire offers Vanessa a seat and then sits in the chair across the room from her, preparing to hear the client's testimony. The room feels cold. Vanessa looks around the office, admiring the decor, the presence of brilliance and accomplishment. Vanessa lives beneath a grand shadow of greatness. And there would be no easy way to have this discussion. There would be no easy way, but it is time nonetheless. And with both hands in her lap, Squeezing and wringing her fingers, Vanessa nervously begins.
Okay. Um. Okay.
Vanessa.
Okay. Just wait. Wait.
Okay.
Mom, I need your legal counsel, and I need your womanly advice.
Okay, I'm listening.
I was raped.
Wait, what? By whom?
By whom?
What? I mean,
I tell you, I've been raped, and you don't even ask if I'm.
Vanessa.
No, the care of your daughter first. Me first. Look, y'all, I know my mother means well. For Claire, being a lawyer isn't simply a trade, but it's her coping mechanism. Before anything gets a chance to reach her heart, it goes through a logical, legal channel first. And I was prepared for that. I mean, Dad would have asked me, "Are you okay?" first. That was his care for me. And to expect that sensitivity from my mother was unfounded because it was unfamiliar.
Okay, I'm sorry. Of course. Are you okay?
No, I was raped.
Tell me. Talk to me. I'm listening.
He was a professor of mine.
What, at Lincoln?
No, at Temple, in grad school.
Okay.
He was my mentor. I trusted him. I needed him to get through the program, and there weren't too many Black professors in the education program, and he was a beacon for those of us who felt lost, who felt alone there. We spent many hours talking about education, about injustice and about inequality, about going to an HBCU and to a PWI, about Obama and about Michelle, about Trayvon and about Daddy, about Dabness, about me. He showed care for me. I love my husband. I would never cheat on my husband, but I often wondered if I had, because I had spent so much time with this other man. Over 3 years, we forged a relationship that felt good, that felt safe. And I existed in a condition in which I could thrive, I could excel, and I would become a doctor too, and I would become great too. Because I had grown so close to this man, I let my guard down. I entrusted my care to him. I didn't see a predator. I did not see a predator. I saw my friend. He invited me to his home to prepare for the defense of my paper for my dissertation, and I had no reason to say no. I would be a fool to say no. I could see the end of my studies, the end of my struggles in school, and I could see his care in getting me to the finish. I went over to his home. His wife was there, but we were in the study.
And wife?
Yes, his wife was there.
This is preposterous.
She was always there. For me, for the others.
Others?
Yes, the others. How could he assault someone with his wife in the next room? He
he was so powerful. He was like a god. And so yeah, there were others. I had dinner with him and with his wife. And after dinner, he offered me coffee. And I said no, I needed to focus. And I wanted to focus on the paper because it was going to be a long night going over the paper. And he asked me if I wanted something stronger to go with my coffee. Mama, I can't say that monster raped me, Professor. No, don't say his name. Not now. Not yet. You first, baby.
Vanessa breaks down and slumps forward in her chair. Claire isn't quick enough to catch Vanessa, so they both fall to the floor. Vanessa curls up in a ball as tight as she can and unleashes the most devastating wail. Vanessa is broken. Vanessa is broken. Vanessa unleashes every tear her shaking body can muster. And finally, Vanessa is loved. And Vanessa is safe. Thus ends the reading of chapter 5, Vanessa. We're going to take about 10 seconds to pull our lives together because I want to thank Velicia and Dahleah for that reading, that performance, that deliverance. That is more than anyone could ask for and more than anyone should expect. We live in a world where women all over, boys, girls, men, women all over have to give that conversation with their parents, with their mothers, with their fathers. And we're just going to take a moment. We're going to take a moment to catch a breath. We're going to go into our panel discussion entitled Me Too, Surviving Sexual Assault. We have a panel of amazing people who will guide us through the discussion of tonight. And let's introduce them. I would like to introduce Imani Baskin. Imani, I'm sorry, I'm just going to take a breath myself. I think Laura's back there taking a breath herself. Yeah. Imani is the founder and CEO of Empowered Squared Incorporated, a personal transformation company based in Atlanta. She holds a BA in psychology, an MA in counseling psychology, and is pursuing her doctorate in counseling psychology. In addition, she is certified in mindfulness and neuro-linguistic programming. It's funny because I just had a conversation with one of our professors about this very topic today. Imani is a superhero in the world. She is the author of Unveiling the I Am, Discovering the Path to Authentic Self, and Today is the Miracle, a 30-day guide of overcoming challenges and creating miracles. She's for 16 years, Imani served as the executive director and founder of Women Healing Women, a nonprofit organization based in Atlanta that's a beacon of light and a source of power and healing for women and girls, not only in the Atlanta area, but all over the globe. I'm blessed to know Imani through my wife and the work that they do together. And I'm 10 feet taller as a result of having Imani on tonight. We also have Verta Maloney. Verta and I go way back, but not that far back, to the good times of undergrad at James Madison University. Verta, I'm going to read Verta's bio just as she wrote it, because I just love that she wrote this in such a claiming way. She said, I am Verta Maloney, and I am all love with appropriate doses of rage. That I could probably stop right there, because that about does it. Love, a ball of love with rage. I run my own business helping individuals and organizations share their racial autobiographies and stories in order to act on and undo racism in this lifetime. It is my hope that in every encounter, Black, Indigenous, and folks of color will leave seen, heard, healed, and loved. I am Chief Community Officer and co-founder at the Gamers, because all kinds of women in gaming are dope. And there's no truer statement. Women playing video games is kind of awesome. I am a founding team member at Civics Unplugged, because I know #the kids will lead. Bless it. The kids will lead. I'm also a national leadership facilitator for the New York City Leadership Academy, where I do more dope shit focused on anti-racism and equality. She's in the epicenter, y'all. Please hold your prayers and hold light up for my girl, Verta. Verta, when we were in undergrad, Verta was so powerful back in the 90s, and from between 1990 and 94, I'm calling my age out, at James Madison University. I knew Verta was so powerful, I had to call her name out twice. And to this day, I know I don't say Verta, I say Verta. I have to say Verta. That's how powerful the sister is. I love her so much. We also have Kat Okedeyi back with us tonight. Kat is the owner of Lil So Productions, LLC. She produces powerful podcasts. She interviews dynamic people, both in the DMV area where she's based, but also beyond. You have to get to know this sister. I got to know her by working with her at Prince George's Community College in the DMV, in the DC area. She also teaches at Bowie State, and her tentacles are just far-reaching and healing. She's just a dynamic sister, and you see this picture on your screen right now. You just have to behold the power that is Kat. And we also have Tiffany Flowers back with us tonight. She joined us on Monday evening, and she is here with us again, this activist, leader, and grower of amazing produce in Connecticut with her father and her husband and her tribe. She's based in Baltimore with the Wretched, and where there is big fun. We're keeping Velicia and Dahleah, excuse me. So, okay, the thing that keeps tripping me up with Dahleah, because we also have a Dahleah, we have Dahleah and Dahleah in our troop. So I'm just tongue-tied a little bit, but I want to bring all of these women up and say hello and welcome, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us tonight. You know what? Now that I've mentioned Dahleah, let me just say really quickly, because simultaneously while we're doing the show, Dahleah's son is graduating from high school tonight.
Oh, congratulations.
And she couldn't join us because she was like, what do I do? And I just want to shout out Phoenix. We love you, Phoenix. You are a beacon in the sky, and your journey is one of great strength and courage. We love you so much. And I think you're going to Howard in the fall. Word is you're going to Bison in the fall. So, congratulations and God bless. We love you. We love you. All right. So ladies, thank you so much for being here tonight. We're going to talk about something that's never, ever easy to talk about. But before we get into that, I just want to say thank you to Dahleah and to Velicia again for that amazingly powerful read. Dahleah, tell us how it felt to read such an iconic character in Vanessa. but also this fan fiction construct where you're reading something that she never really endured in the show, but you're having to embody that experience on her behalf.
Well, to be honest, I know you're going to ask this question later, but my favorite was someone else, a different sister. But as I kind of tried to understand who Vanessa was, I found a lot of bits of myself in her. And I think at first I thought I would identify with Sandra because I'm the oldest of my mom's girls. She has 7, but I'm the oldest girl. I'm like third in line. So there was a lot of responsibilities and things that fell on me. I didn't often get a chance to be invisible. And I think that, I guess the grass is greener because I see privilege in those moments to where Vanessa can just kind of do her own thing. No one's expecting anything of her, demanding anything of her. She can just find out who she is kind of on the side. Whereas when you're the oldest, you don't get that privilege.
Sure.
All eyes are on you. Your mistakes are broadcast.
Yeah.
Everyone has to look at what you did and make sure they don't do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I felt good. I liked exploring the side of Vanessa that I wasn't familiar with.
Sure. Well, thank you for lending your voice to her, and you did a thing, girl. You did a thing. And yes, those who are wondering, Velicia is in fact her mom. We did a little magic there where she got up and went to. We're so excited about that. Yeah, thank you so much for being a part of this. Verta, tell us how you're feeling tonight. How are things going for you up there in New York?
I'm feeling all the things, embracing and accepting all of the emotions. I basically am telling everyone I feel like I am in an episode, I think we might have talked about this, right? Either of Twilight Zone or Black Mirror, where I woke up one day and everybody was about what I've been about since I've been about it. And so it's intense.
Yeah. I can't imagine, Houston, being the third largest city in the US. We've been kind of operating under the radar in terms of the whole COVID pandemic and whatnot. And of course, with bringing the funeral of George Floyd here, the camera has been, the light has been, shown more definitively on Houston. But you there in New York, it just seems like we're constantly hearing about how tested you all are there, and we hold you in light and love there.
And also to say that we are. While there's a lot going on, we're also good. So we're having that space of feeling our joy and embracing those things and being a part of this uprising while being at the end.
Yeah. Imani, you're in Atlanta right now, yes? How are you doing in Georgia?
Okay, so I'm vacillating between rage, anguish, and love, and really at all times trying to find good balance of all of them. Yeah, and so I'm here doing the thing, and really just trying to be a student of some of the things I teach around self-care. So that I can still be in it for others. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here, and certainly for the work that you do in general.
And let me just that reading, wow to the we. I just had to say that.
Yeah.
Wow to the whole we. That was amazing.
Well, you know what? I'm going to put a pin in talking to the ladies from the DMV for just a second and come and stay with you for a second. What were tell us what is inspiring that?
Yeah, so here's the backstage thing is that we got an opportunity to walk through a reading, right? So you think you're prepared, but I wasn't, for how much emotion Dahleah brought to that piece, and thinking about my own story of when I told my mom, right? And leaning into particularly the part where you talked about the fear of her mother's strength, because I had that. And so it was so palpable. And I mean, like, I've been on panels, I've been doing the work of, anti-violence and against sexual violence for years. But hearing that part of it, it really reminded me. I could feel my own trauma mapping when I told that truth. And my mom had always told me, if anybody ever touches you, I'll kill him. And I believed her.
Yeah.
Because girlfriend was a little to the cray-cray, right? Still is.
Yeah.
But she told me that, and so I believed her. And because the person who touched me first was my father, and I loved him, right? So, well, I don't want you to kill him. So how can I tell you that?
How do you reconcile that? Yeah.
So all of that came up for me.
Yeah.
As I watched her tell that story, and as I watched her mother struggle to hear it and witness it and be in it and digest it. Yeah.
I promise, Kat and Tiffany, we're going to come and ask you how you're doing, because we want to know how you're doing. But I want to strike while the iron's hot on this topic of how do we tell our parents? How do we tell our family? How do we? No, your care is first. How are you doing, Kat?
Wow. You're amazing, first of all, because like this whole project I'm blown away. And I tell people, like, you need to check this out. I've been talking to people about what you did with this fan fiction. So, it's breathtaking, as a lover of Black culture and content, to see this being done and the scale that it's being done at the level it's being done, it actually takes my breath away. So I just had to tell you that. I'm going to be very honest. Today I'm not okay. I'm struggling, and I am at my dad's house. So my dad's house is not set up for these types of things. So I'm in. So I was like, oh my God, I need a plug. Oh my God, I need a desk. It's just a mess. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit in this comfy chair because I just feel like I need support. And today has just been, it's just been hard. It's just, I don't, I have my really good days and I'm out here doing what I got to do. Today I had to teach. I did my first live session with my summer students, and a lot of students showed up, which was dope. But then I had to break down, white supremacy and anti-Blackness as it relates to slavery. And one of the students, who's very passionate, just lost it. He completely lost it during the session. And I had to give space for that. And he took up a lot of room because he was so angry, and he was like, I don't understand that. And I was like, whatever we got to do to get you back to center. I'm a big believer, and sometimes you just got to go drink water. And so I had to end the session, and I told everybody to go drink some water, take some deep breaths, and we just keep doing it. We'll just keep at it. But every time I have to talk to someone off the tree, have a conversation about how they're feeling, I'm finding that more and more, it's taking me longer to recover from those conversations. And I am, I have my teas, I have my herbs, I know how to take care of myself, but I am finding, like, today, it was just hard. It was just hard. So I was like, I'm going to go to my dad's house because my stepmother is an amazing cook, and she'll stuff me full of food, and I'll have Moroccan tea, and I'll have this conversation, and things will be better. But I'm not okay. Like, right now in this moment, I'm just glad to be able to function, but I'm tired. I'm really tired.
Girl, relish in the comfort of your family and be on that couch, and don't let anybody tell you need to be anywhere otherwise.
Look, I'm sure after y'all, it's a wrap. It's on Do Not Disturb for the rest of the night. Don't even worry about it.
I can understand. Well, thank you for sharing the sliver of time with us, and we won't take too much of it.
Oh no, I'm fine. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah,
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
This is energizing for me.
Awesome. Tiffany, how you feeling, hon?
I really just, I'm feeling everything Kat just said. I'm weepy. I've been weepy the last couple of days, and I vacillate from excited and so hopeful to just flat out missing my mama and daddy. But I feel energetic, and I feel like I told you earlier in the week, that something is different in the world, and I'm hoping that we can hold on to it and take something out of all this pain and suffering and make it into something beautiful.
Yeah.
Ashe.
You have to send up the light when things hurt. And what we have been robbed of historically as Black women is the truth of our pain, that we carry this sort of mythic strength that we don't feel pain in the same way. And it's kind of manifest itself in the fact that more Black women die giving birth to, you know, the next generation than any other demographic of women in the world, that our pain is mythic, as being non-existent. And what I love about what you all have conveyed already tonight is the truth that this shit hurts. And we are enduring something that also will make us stronger and hopeful in the end, just as Tiffany has said. But Saturday was that day for me, Kat. Saturday, Michelle will tell you, I was in the ugly cry in the passenger seat of the car. She was like, well, let's just go get something to eat. I'm thinking, yeah, okay. She goes, fresh air, let's go out. And that didn't make it any better because these fools out here don't have no mask on. I'm looking at the world going, it's over. We did. It's over. And I'm hysterical. I'm hysterical in the passenger seat. Like, she's looking at me going, what do you need? And sometimes sitting on the couch of your father's house is what you need. Or sometimes, you know, hanging on to the hope of what could be or what will be is what we need. Yes, Tiffany. And leaning on the wisdom and direction of a leader like Imani, leading on the youth or the revolutionary of Verta. And so I appreciate you all being here tonight. Let's talk about then. Let's get this. Let's talk about the difficulties of surviving a couple things. Number one, surviving sexual assault.
Yeah.
And number two, surviving the additional trauma of having to relive your trauma and having to tell someone else that you've gone through a thing. And the third trauma of them perhaps may or may not believing you or aligning themselves with you for your care. And so then you have to advocate for yourself. So tonight we're going to talk about these things in three brackets. Okay. Let's first address the reality and the history of sexual assault among women and Black women in particular. Imani said it happens in our family. Let's talk about this.
You know, so there are a couple things that came up for me right away as you were just talking. And one of them is this idea that what if the boogeyman ain't so boogie, right? It's your grandfather or your brother or your auntie, right? Or, you know, what if that person is also embodied in love that you have for them? Look, my father was my best friend, and this was the challenge in telling is how did I balance that? And so how to figure that out. Now, my survival mind, my trauma mind simply compartmentalized it, right? Like this is what he is during the daytime, and this is this thing that happens periodically in the nighttime. And that is how I survived it. You know, and telling is very challenging for a couple of reasons. One, you know, I've been on this quest to deconstruct the myth of the Black superwoman because it is toxic, cloaked in a compliment.
Yeah.
And we have to be very conscientious and conscious and intentional about not feeding that toxicity as some badge of honor, because then our white counterparts are taking care of themselves and we are sitting back wondering, you know, how super can I be?
Sure.
And how do I measure up? And sometimes we don't even realize when we're in the middle of crisis.
Yeah.
Right. So it becomes difficult to tell our story because we're also living up, trying to stand in that mask. And so for me, it was that when I am a survivor of multiple forms of sexual assault, incest, I was raped and molested by a physician. Now, it's one of the reasons I started Women Healing Women, because, I was like, is something like, what is on my back? Like that, why is this happening to me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's actually common that women experience more than one form of sexual violence in their lifetime. And so telling, though, became my superpower for healing.
Mm.
And every time I would go somewhere and tell my story, and a woman who was 40 or 30 or 50 walked up to me and said, like, I never told anybody, and hearing you tell your story, gives me permission to tell my story, it got easier and easier and easier. But I will tell you, at almost 53 years old and doing the work for 20 some odd years, there's a moment when I tell the detail, particularly of the incest story, that there's like a little moment that shows up in my stomach, and I always have to just manage it.
But what is that permission? What is that permission we need to even tell that we've been sexually assaulted? What is that permission that we need to say, I was violated? What is that permission that you mentioned?
Yeah, like, I think for me, I think this sister, Aisha Simmons, who did the documentary No, talks a lot about it. It's the permission to not see telling my truth as a violation of the Black solidarity, right? Particularly if the person that that we're talking about is a Black man or a Black person, and then it's like, I have to come out of one role to tell this truth, and I don't think we figured out that balance yet. This is real, because even now, a friend and colleague of mine who went to go speak, invited at a protest to speak as a Black woman, when she started talking about women, Black women at the mic, they booed her at the protest in Atlanta. So we're still trying to find a balance. Like, how do we make room for all of the isms? I know many of you, the fellow panelists, and yourself, Teresa, I have been in spaces of Black consciousness spaces as a panelist. And then as soon as I start bringing up sexism as wrapped in that conversation, or God forbid, homophobia, or start talking about heterosexism, then it's flattened.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So once again, I have to compartmentalize myself to survive even those conversations. And this is one of the things that just makes it hard, makes it challenging. And when we talk about sexism and carrying the guilt, and if you carry guilt, shame is sure to follow. You walk in the room with guilt, shame is sure to follow. So it's really about sort of working through the guilt of what telling means. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it means a violation of the solidarity. This is the sort of the disease of this thinking, is the what do I do with the solidarity? Who am I violating in order to do that? And then, Black women, often we're so hypersexualized that's so deeply ingrained. Somewhere we start thinking, well, because I came on my period when I was 10 years old.
Mm.
I used to, get hit on by grown men at 10 years old, because I was shaped like, bat to boom boom, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know what any of that was, but it was the bat to boom boom anyway. So then it just starts feeling like, well, how much of that did I cause?
Sure. Okay. Tiffany, you had a visceral reaction to something she said a moment ago. What's on your mind?
The thing about getting your starting your menstrual cycle when you're that young, I think, is like, I don't know, it's just I'm hoping, I'm not a mother, I'm an auntie, and I'm a very intentional auntie to 4 Black girls who are mixed Black girls who range in age from 15 to 11. And I often worry so much about how far we've moved in these conversations. And because I'm a victim and I was molested when I was a child, but was somebody who really found my voice around what boundaries look like around that and in adulthood, because I didn't want to continue to be re-triggered and I didn't want to continue to live that trauma. And that person, unfortunately, is related to me. And so it created the very conflicts that I'm seeing in the comment section, and so it's work, right? It's like, wow, the trauma mapping that you were talking about, it's like I know why I get these feelings when it's time for a gathering, when I have to go to a funeral, when like I had done the work so much, as you said, of separating those two things out, that when I was able to put those two things together and realize that maybe being around some people will never serve me again in my life. It was hard work in the beginning, but it gets easier every day. So I understand, and it lives so deeply inside of me, and it's caused me and other people, I think, to make some really tough decisions. But at the end, I feel safer and better and clearer and much more clear about the damage that caused over the years, and then all the working and unlearning that I had to do. But all of that was not in vain, because now I can pour all of that into the children, right? And so I become the curse breaker. I become the over giving you too much information, as opposed to some of us who didn't get half as much information as we did, So I feel you, and I want to send love to you, Imani, because I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Organizations such as SARA, Sexual Assault Resource Association, based in Charlottesville, Virginia, the research shows that every 7 seconds a woman is assaulted in this country alone. Kat, what space do we hold then for young women in the educational forum? We're both in the classroom. We're seeing young people on a daily basis. What space shall we hold, if any? Is it our place, or do we maintain that thing of fear, the permission of giving safe space when young women, when girls communicate that they need help in this respect?
So I am I believe that my soul contract requires me to be where I am right now teaching. I teach at PG Community College. I love it. I feel like I'm supposed to be that lighthouse, particularly for young Black girls. Quick story. I used to have this project where you had to, in my literature class, it was like a second year composition, you had to, we would spend most of the semester looking at poetry and short stories and plays. And then for your final presentation, you had to create a collection of poetry or a short story, and you would present to the class. There was this one particular young sister, beautiful chocolate sister, and she always seemed a little disconnected from everything. She seemed a little spacey, if I'm honest. And she had this hairstyle where she wore her hair in a top knot, but it was the way it was done. It almost seemed ritualistic, and I didn't understand why. And so I would find that every once in a while, some of the young men in the class would make like snide remarks and try to tease her about her hair. And if I overheard, I'd be like, "You need not here. You need to know." Yeah. And whenever I felt like she was being like ignored or people, because she was just different. So she got up to tell she decided to do a short story. And the short story was about a young girl who ends up being molested by her mother's boyfriend. And one of the things the boyfriend does in the story is that he's constantly rubbing her hair because her hair is long. And so she talks about, after the first time it happens, she decides to put her hair up so that if her hair is up, maybe he won't touch her again.
Right.
When I tell you that class was about 20 students deep, 4 were young men, the rest were young women. Like a set of dominoes, all the young women start crying.
Oh, yeah.
And then immediately, back right after each other, get up and leave. Yeah. She's crying at the podium, and then they all immediately, one by one, get up and leave and go to the bathroom because they're just heartbroken. The young men, and I'm thinking 18, 20 most, are stunned. They don't know what to say. They are in shock.
Wow.
And I said, I said, I want you to give thanks for being able to witness and hold space for this young woman. And from now on, I want you to think about this every time you think you want to say something smart out your mouth about whatever woman you see. And now I'm going to ask you to leave because I got to take care of these girls.
Right.
And they were like, yes, ma'am. Is there anything we can do? I was like, just be better men. And so just be better men. So they got up and left. I had to go into the bathroom. All of the young girls are crying, and I'm talking sobbing. And I have to corral them back into the classroom, close the door, and let them cry.
Mm.
And I had to sit there, and once everybody calmed down, I said, what's going on? And it turned into a group therapy session. I had not planned for that to happen. I was so incredibly proud of that young sister because she didn't have to tell her story. And I told her, it's like, you entrusted us with something that was really important. She had never told anyone outside of her mother. She had told her mother believed her. The man was immediately arrested. So I was thankful for that.
Yeah.
I had another student who, bubbly, full of joy, one semester just disappeared. She shows back up. I'm like, where have you been? You know, what's going on? She was raped by her stepfather and she got pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at her like, wow, what do you need? Like, what can I do? And so for me, I don't believe that I have to, because I have colleagues who feel like they have to put on this professional thing. I don't do all that. Like,
Yeah.
I am there to make sure that if as the lighthouse, if you pass my way and I shine my light on you and you need help, I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah.
I have given students money. I have sat down and talked them off of trees. Like, they tell me they were going to kill themselves and we have to have a conversation. And there's so many young girls who are fragmented, because I don't want to use the word broken. They're fragmented. And they're fragmented because they have terrible things have happened to them.
Yeah.
And they go into the classroom and the classroom is not necessarily the space that you're supposed to be getting that loving mother attention, but they need it. I've had students that are really having mental breaks, but because of the way they show up, everyone thinks they're just off and crazy.
Yeah.
And I have to run that fine line between letting a Black girl be free and, letting her make those mistakes and trying not to tamp down on that magic, because I know that right now she's being seen as crazy when really what I see is someone who needs to let off steam.
Yeah.
And so I think it's absolutely, for me, I take on that I don't see it as a burden. I see it as part of my duty. I know there are plenty of teachers who are like, you do too much. I can't believe you spent all that time. But I'm like, you know what? If it keeps you off the bridge, then I'm here for it.
Right.
And oftentimes they're not getting what they need. Their mothers are busy. Their fathers are busy. Oftentimes they're the oldest. And so they're expected to take care of everyone else and nobody checks on them. I'm an oldest child, so I know what it's like to have that kind of responsibility. So I am often quite thankful that I get to be in that space to catch them, because some people they don't know what it feels to have a soft landing.
Yeah.
And so if I can do that in that moment, then I'm happy to do that. But it's not easy work. I'm honored to do it, but I do think we have a responsibility, particularly those of us and Black women who are in these higher institutions of learning, because these institutions are not kind to our children, regardless. They're just not. And they tend to treat the young men, they're so in awe of them because they don't expect young Black men to be articulate, that if they string sentences together, they're getting pats on the back. Meanwhile, these young Black girls are being vilified because they're too powerful. They're too matchy.
Yeah.
And so I go in with my bindis and my locks and my caftans, and I let them know, like, this one here, I got you. Whatever you need, I got you. And that's how we do it, because no one's going to save these girls but us. Like real talk. Ain't nobody coming to save these Black girls. And so if we don't do it, they'll be lost.
Verta, the work that you do speaks to that most directly. What is the work that we can lend ourselves to, in addition to what Kat is saying, in addition to the healing work that Imani and Tiffany has alluded to? What is the activism work that we could be leaning ourselves towards for our young girls?
The first thing is decolonizing our minds.
Mm-hmm.
and not accepting this generational experience. Because to hear Kat talk about how many young girls, young women were sobbing because they had some similar experience is not okay. And that it's not just in higher education, right? So as someone who worked in elementary and middle schools, there are those young souls that don't know that the initial question was about like that moment when you tell. And I think it's about, will the telling even matter?
Mm.
Will anyone listen to you, right? So I don't have the therapy background, more from an education space and just the activism, but I think that we have to, just as we are asking, and so being on this panel with all of these amazing Black spirits is really healing for me. This is a very painful topic, but spending so much of my day around white people right now is like a lot, right?
Yeah.
And what it means that in this space, we have to start to be really honest with each other and in our community about what is going on. And we have to, as we are asking and demanding that white folks do their work around racism and anti-racism, we as a community have to think about the internalized racial inferiority, internalized racial effects of
Yes.
racism in our system. We have to name it. We have to be honest about it because it shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And to what Kat's saying, we as Black women, we sit at this space of, it's like this intersection, the intersectionality, which is about us. So everyone wants to use it right now, but if we were to go back to Crenshaw's work, that's about us.
Amen.
But if we think about that aspect, like we sit in this place, but the thing is that it's also what is killing us.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can only hold so much, right? We can hold a lot, but we can only hold so much. And so I think what you said about just men being better men, that I don't know how everyone identifies. My pronouns are she, her in this call and on this panel. However, we need to speak about our LGBTQ plus community within and how this impacts them, and that this work of liberation is not just about one man, one Black man, right? It is about all of us getting free. And if all of us get free, then we have to name how pandemic it is in our community that young Black children, young Black girls are raped, are sexually molested, are abused, and don't have anyone to go to. And the thing that really moved me in that performance, so seeing it, right, like 1.5, because I had to leave abruptly, and then we did a couple rehearsals, but this time, like, I was crying because I actually was like feeling a kind of way about Claire's like not being in that moment, like, and it's this disassociation that I would imagine that a mom is doing, because what the fuck? I'm sorry, I'm dropping the first F-bomb, but like, what just happened? And so yeah, I think that while all of this is going on and what's happening in the country speaks very much to the fact that Black people, that anti-Blackness is real, that we have lived this extreme experience, at the same time, we have also, as a community, holistically, it's not everyone, but holistically taken on some really terrible, violent aspects of white supremacy culture.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The heartbreaking
Absolutely.
piece of this over generations is the normalcy of molesting and raping young Black girls, even within families, right? And by within families, I don't just mean, a father walks into a child's room. I'm talking about also that component of having to convince the mother you probably also endured something of the same sort of experience, having to convince her that what I'm telling you is not something I've made up.
Right.
It's not something I imagined. It happened. I didn't dream it. It is what it is. How do we snap the normalcy? Or, I think about The Color Purple, and the telling of Celie, who was a child bride in a sense,
right.
and how even as Alice Walker wrote the book, and as we saw in the film, how this young girl endured this devastating life, how even today, Kat may have a student, I may have a student, Verta may have a young person in the work that she does and the activism that she does. Imani may have a patient who comes through in the work that she does, who will tell the same story. And make you go, my God, when does this cycle end? How do we break this cycle so that what we are talking about collectively loses its sense of normalcy?
No, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say something Verta said was really important to me, and that is about decolonizing our minds around even all of this too. I think that we would be very surprised to learn how many Black girls have had babies by uncles and brothers and fathers, and somehow the myth is like this is a white story, and it's just not. I can tell you that. But I think as we decolonize our minds, we have to be very intentional about what we're placing back in there. I have spent a lot of my career not just holding space for women who have experienced violence, sexual violence, but also deconstructing exactly what sexual violence is, because I can't tell you how many women I've said, have you ever experienced sexual violence? And they said no. And then I start talking to her about her history, and they'll say, oh, well, I did have a boyfriend that wouldn't let me leave the house until I had sex with his friends, and he wouldn't take me home. But no, I've never experienced sexual violence. And I said I had to hold space for her. So, and then explain how that is actually violence. So we're not even sure when we're sitting in our own crisis and trauma and pain. So it's two things: is teaching people how to recognize and identify their own trauma, and then teaching people how to be to be quality care witnesses of other people's pain. Because some people can't even provide care for you because they're filtering your story through their own pain narratives that they haven't even dealt with yet.
Right.
So then when they're trying to, and this goes across gender, right? Sometimes you're thinking that the best support you're going to get is from a woman, and it may not be.
Yeah.
She may be numb. And then this is how I came into mindfulness practice, because I spent so many years out of my body. I've watched women, because the consequences of sexual violence, last well beyond the actual acts. And one of the things it attempts to steal from us is our connection with our body. And so mindfulness for me is about healing the part of sexual violence that takes you away from that center. And as long as you're out of your body and living in that way, it's really challenging to heal that trauma.
Yeah.
You're falling in love. You think you're falling in love, and really what you're doing is trauma bonding with someone else who hasn't done their
trauma bonding. My God, what are you saying?
Okay. And you thought that was love. Why? Because it gave you the tinglies. But the reason it's giving you the tinglies is because it's awakening your parasympathetic nervous system. And so you all lit up, and you think that's love or attraction. And really it's just your body remembering pain. And then it's connected to their pain, and then here we go, right? So it's all these things. It attempts to steal from us. In Women Healing Women, I used to say violence is an experience, not an identity. And part of the reason of starting Women Healing Women is because I looked around as a survivor, trying to find a place that wasn't trying to make me a victim, keep me a victim, but really help me figure out how to restore power for myself.
Yeah.
Not walk in fear. That how to walk down the street. If I see a group of brothers walking down the street, I'm walking down the street and I see a group of brothers, I would be in fear. I'm like, okay, I got to cross the street. That should not be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? That should not be. When I am, going through the world to create safe space for myself was really part of that battle. So I think that, so many times people think they have overcome the trauma and then I'm around, and I'm gonna tell you, I've been doing this so long, the surface cues, what we call surface cues of sexual violence, are so palpable to me. I could like get in a room with about 50 there it is, right? Because it's all these subconscious ways that it's coming to the surface.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that the two things that come up for me in trying to sort of to add to this amazing gumbo that is being created tonight is that, one, as Black people, like I love what Verta said. I actually talked about this in a podcast. You cannot grow up in the society and not be anti-Black. You have to fight every day to push that back, especially as a Black person. I think it's embedded in the system of what America is. And so in fighting that means you're choosing to love and humanize yourself and the people around you at all times.
Yeah.
And that is not easy when you've been told that certain people are disposable. And I think as Black people, we got to divorce ourselves from this notion that life is inherently supposed to feel bad and be a struggle.
Yeah.
And so, because I think
We're
some
the
of
only
what happens,
demographic that holds that though.
like, I want you to think, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, joke time, small joke time. I had to have surgery. And when I had this surgery, my doctor was really concerned. He's like, look, I don't want you getting hooked on these Oxycontin. So take some Tylenol, unless it's really bad. I'm a Black woman. I got this. I don't need no stinking narcotics. I'm out here doing it. I sneezed one day. Right. I sneezed one day and thought I was going to die. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I took this little white pill. Mm-hmm. These white people drugs, these white people do not suffer, y'all.
Ladies and gentlemen, the white people drugs are the real Holyfield.
They do not suffer. I've seen us, no, I don't want to, I'm strong, and we will suffer. We will suffer. And white people will be like, no, give me the pills.
Yeah.
I'll take all of the pills. And it's, and I'm being facetious to a certain extent, but what I realize is that I have always defaulted to pain as some sort of badge of honor.
Yes.
When it comes to my physicality, when it comes to me being tired, I've always defaulted to, I'm gonna ride this coast, because I have been made to feel like that is what life is about.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's not. Like, that should not be.
Yes.
It's also that narrative though of, if the ancestors could endure X, Y, and Z, and our privilege, we should be able to endure X, Y, and Z.
I promise you, my ancestors would have taken the white people drugs.
I'm telling you. Look, previously in the series, we had an episode that dealt with the emotional violence of shaming. Next week in the Olivia episode, we're looking at the mythical or the making magical of Black women's pain, that somehow it is not valid and we can endure it, right? And so somewhere in the middle, what we're talking about tonight is breaking through the cloud of shame. We can step out into the world and say, hey, you know what? This happened to me. I've endured this. I've carried this on my shoulder. I don't want to carry it anymore. I'm letting you all know who the perpetrator is. I'm letting you know where the ailment is. I'm letting you know what the pain is. I'm letting you know what the struggle is. I'm letting you know that I can't take it anymore. And I need a community. I need help, right? Mm-hmm. And then we're also saying, when I hurt, and I mean it, and I need you to hear me when I say it. Mm-hmm. Dahleah, you're just a touch younger than the rest of us here in this panel. What is the new generation? What is your generation? What are the millennials or the Generation Z? What are we making too much of this? Are we just speaking old lady talk? I mean, what's the conversation that you all who are banging on Twitter and whatnot? How do you handle trauma and telling the truth about your pain?
What I really love about my generation is that there's become somewhat of a call out culture, to where if you don't want to put up with something, you just call that person out. Like, there's no hiding it anymore. Everyone feels empowered to speak their truth. And I'm not exactly sure where that stemmed from, I don't know what it is about this generation or what happened, but I think that the Me Too movement was a good indicator that we're not going to be silent anymore. We're going to speak our trauma. We're going to call out those who have made us feel smaller or victimized us or whatever. And I just don't, I don't know where that came from, but I see it even with this movement now, to where no matter what someone says, some random person comments something on an Instagram page or Facebook, everyone's attacking that person. We're getting, they're getting doxxed. I'm not going to say I support getting doxxed, but they're losing their jobs. Their
Yeah.
phone
I support it.
Right.
Their addresses are posted. Like, there's no more. No, go ahead. Yeah, there's no more of this. I'm gonna hide behind and just kind of suffer in silence. I think
Right.
that there's a movement to be empowered.
Sure.
You all are fearless. I love that about y'all.
Yeah.
100%.
I want to bring Velicia back on. It also means I need to take someone out of this mix out, but I want to leave Dahleah on because I do want to have I do want to have the conversation of what the experience was of approaching this material for a mother-daughter combo as we talk about communicating with our mothers or reconciling the relationships with our mothers or with our daughters or with the expectation of what it means to be in these familiar relationships, and talking about trauma. Doesn't necessarily have to be sexual abuse, but in talking about trauma with each other. What is the trial or the difficulty about it, and what informed that for the two of you as you approach this material? Velicia, I think you're muted. There you go. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So for me, the hardest part is, am I on?
Yep.
Yeah. So the hardest part,
Yep,
I
you're
guess,
good.
is acknowledging that so much of this is generational. I think when you start peeling back these layers and you find out that a cousin or your mom or so many people have been victimized by oftentimes some of the same people. Dealing with that up front, just our own family history of, and that's what Dahleah and I were talking about. It's so hard to find someone that we don't know personally who's been touched by an issue like this. I think that speaks volumes, and we know we've moved around a lot. We've lived in Germany, we've lived in Georgia, Abu Dhabi. Everywhere we've gone, we've met people to some degree, and I thought we had it bad. And I mean, living in Abu Dhabi was an amazing experience, but when you look at culturally how these same issues and traumas have been kind of perpetuated, and you may not even speak the same language, but you speak that language. You speak the language of trauma, and for women, that's scary. That's raising daughters. That's really, and when you think you can get them away from it, you think, oh, I'll take my baby over, and they're doing the same thing to women, and we'll talk about them like a dog, like, oh, y'all over, and everybody I know is dealing with the same issue. It's hard. It's really, really hard.
Yeah, I would agree. I've never spoken on my own experiences just because I never felt strong enough. And then with this piece,
Take your time.
there were just, for me, a lot of parallels because I've always seen my mom as like the strongest, most intelligent and amazing person that I know. And it just felt like expressing would be disappointing to her. It was more of this is something that I did wrong. And if I confess to you, you're going to be upset with me. And in that piece, I felt the same way that Vanessa did. Like, you're so strong and you're everything and you're powerful. You just feel small. And so, yeah, it was difficult. And like those who have watched our rehearsals, they know that rehearsals did not go like this at all. I don't know where that came from. I never attach myself to the piece like I did that last time. So it just came organically, and it was difficult to get through.
And that's this double-edged sword of Black motherhood, I think. After my divorce, I was a mother of 7 by myself, and I didn't have an option, But I started out as a teenage mom. I graduated. I turned 18 in May, graduated high school in June, and I gave birth in July. And that was the story of my life. And so having that many people, after my divorce, really relying on me solely, you put off this facade, kind of like the panelists were saying, you inherit this. I don't know if it's false. I wouldn't call it bravado, but you put on this front because you want your kids safe. You want them to not be any more traumatized than they already are. But at the same time, we're doing a disservice. We're perpetuating these cycles of falsehoods.
Yeah.
I know for me, my mom was struggling because my abuser was my father. My first abuser, she really struggled with. She chose an abuser as a husband, and because I was able to have the conversation with my mother in my early 20s, at some point I had to say to her, I can't help you digest that and metabolize that. And that was very important for me. And this was the beginning of me learning the boundaries I needed, because I didn't have any good boundaries at all. Yeah. And so I think that's one of the other things, is teaching quality self-care is an important part of healing from trauma, and not self-care that is just about getting your nails done, or self-care as an intervention. Like you wait till you break down, now you want to get self-care. That's not self-care, right?
Right.
And recognizing that, like, for example, I remember one time having surgery in 2006 or 4, and I remember thinking, "Oh, I can't wait till I have surgery so that I can rest." And then I heard myself say that. I was like, "What?" I remember one time.
It's real.
I had a job a long time ago working with seniors in Georgia, and a colleague was going, and we all had to chip in and help the activities director. And I'm driving seniors up 85, and the bus broke down in 85 weather. And I love seniors because they will say what's on their mind. Those seniors were in the back talking about me. I was like, she can't drive. What's happening? And I had to call the people to come get us. And while we're sitting there hot, they're talking about me. I pick up my cell phone. I call a friend to take care of some business. And I said, "Oh, girl, I got some downtime, so I thought I'd call you." And I told her what I was doing. And she said, "Wait a minute, can we just talk about the fact that that's not downtime?"
Right.
But that's so real. We don't even recognize when we're in pain and when we're in trauma, because again, we normalize it. We don't know how to speak the language of self-care and how to recognize when we're in those spaces.
Yeah.
And to see our own humanity. So I think, connected to what's happening in the world right now, right? Stating Black Lives Matter is about the fact that the humanity of Black people was not seen, right? At one point, we were considered property in this country. And how do you internalize that? And as a mom, how do you not feel that you have to keep it together when historically, if you're from this country, your children could have been sold, and you got to keep it together so that no of them don't get sold, right? Because if you break that, something's going to happen. And us understanding that story helps us to break the shackles, right, of this trauma. And I think that too often we want to not remember the story because it feels like, well, I don't need to think about that. That's not important, right? Like, that's not what's happening for me. And that's really important. And it is my hope that younger generations are able to break this and willing to dox people and do what they need to do, because we are doing this work, right? That is us. Because I do feel like this moment right here, like the moment, all of the things that are like COVID, all of it, everything shut down. I feel like this is the universe, the gods and goddesses saying, look, Black women, y'all been doing a lot.
Yeah.
Y'all to be good. So we need you to rest.
Yeah.
Right? To reset. And I think that it's intentional, and I'm hoping that younger generations are able to do what they're doing because they know and feel that maybe they can come to us, but that we're having these conversations very differently, right? And that not because I'm not holding on to that anymore, right? Part of my work through therapy was acknowledging, and I did core energetic therapy. Was my work was like to move it, because realizing that it was just tight in my body.
Yeah.
How do I get it out? And how do I see myself as worthy of care, worthy of love, worthy of being believed, and just plain worthy, period.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have to do all those other things in order for my worth to be there. And it's, and I'm not saying that it's perfect right now, right? Like, I'm still thinking about you when you just said, I think it was Imani, like, oh, I have a free minute. Like, I'm doing that. I'll be calling people and, okay, we got this work to do. They're like, we need you to chill for like 3 seconds. Like,
right. Let me just ask Dahleah to go into the room with Velicia, and that will allow all of us to be on the frame at once. Dahleah, go on in there. Okay. That way we can all be on the frame at once. Yep. So we brought Tiffany back in. We're coming up on that time where we need to start wrapping up. I'm not going to get into the whole the unifying question yet. I will get there, but we're not there yet because. Okay, so the way I structured the Vanessa chapter, I think watching Vanessa over the years, watching Vanessa as a character on the Cosby Show over the years, there were scenes throughout the series where I was just like, oh, this is kind of cringy. Why would Cliff, and by extension, why would Bill make, for instance, when they were doing the locomotion thing, when Vanessa and her friends were doing the locomotion song, and Cliff made her jump up and down to make sure her breasts wouldn't fall out of the top of her costume, or the example of setting the apple on top of one another to ask the question of what her sexual interest was in Robert. I don't know if you guys remember any of these episodes that I'm talking about. But the reason I chose Vanessa as being the character that would talk about this pain wasn't so much about the sexual assault piece of it, but was the trusting, the blind trusting of people piece of it. That in the things that we've talked about tonight about wanting to relinquish the burden of carrying trauma and carrying pain when no one else knows it, how willing then sometimes, as Imani said, we're willing to find that relationship that may be toxic, that may not be what we think it is, but how it makes us feel. I felt like Vanessa was probably the most vulnerable in that respect. And the professor that she described as being a professor at Temple, Bill Cosby went to Temple as a doctoral student, and later as a mentor for other students there, and then given the troubling path that he pursued, I mirrored the person that she was referring to. I mirrored that off of Bill Cosby, off of that situation. Right. And what I want to say I guess, as we start to wrap up is, Laura, can you bring Velicia's camera up too? Because that has both ladies on it. So we have everyone here. Yeah. Before we get into who's your favorite Huxtable and who you most like and all that, I want to give Vanessa a little bit more time because I do feel like there was a quieting of her voice that she experienced as a character. That being, a middle child, being someone who was invisible, being someone who was, darker in hue, and being someone who simply wasn't believed when she expressed her pain. In what ways did you see yourself, in particular, in Vanessa? And then we'll get into who more specifically you found yourself in other characters. But connect yourself to Vanessa as a round robin, and then we'll keep going. Starting with Verta.
Start.
So are there two questions or just one? Who's going to favorite?
For right now, just don't worry about the repeated question of what's your favorite Huxtable, blah, blah, blah. Just focus on Vanessa. For the moment, we're giving Vanessa all the love we can. And where were you in Vanessa, and where was Vanessa in you?
Right. Well, Vanessa, she was the darker skinned child, and I'm not darker, but I'm a little dark black girl who liked books and liked school and was quirky and kind of was finding her way. And so those things about her, and really trying to find others that would see the value in me, and looking for validation. So I definitely connect with that in her character. And this performance was really brilliant, and it moved me to tears, because I think in this performance tonight, it was about, for me, that moment of sharing is when you finally do share. I think it's because you finally do feel that you're worthy of more. And you don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of like leaping into a void, but there's something in you that realizes that I'm worthy of more than what I thought. And so that just really moved me in that way.
Yeah. Imani.
Yes. I think there's a lot. I'm the oldest, but it's just me and my brother. But I think I relate to Vanessa because I really see and have seen Vanessa as the first example of an indigo child, right? To me. Like, she just was, there's a rebellious part about her. There's something freeing about being invisibilized. And because then, you can push in certain ways too. And then the thing that is weaponized against you ends up being the Achilles heel. So that if you don't see me coming, then you won't see me until I'm right up on you. That is kind of how I saw Vanessa. Like, I saw her as a rebel a little bit in her family, because she was, as I saw her, often willing to push back in ways that other characters didn't. And I definitely see myself as that, as a child, and in a lot of ways even now.
No doubt. Tiffany?
Yeah, I would say, piggybacking on what I said on Monday, I think Vanessa literally is me. We were like the same age when the show was on television. And I grew up because I was smart, and because my mom and dad knew I was pretty self-sufficient, had a lot of latitude. And so I think something that really doesn't get teased out a lot so much about Vanessa is that low-key rebellion, and the fact that as she got older, she learned how to manipulate her invisibility, and she learned how to manipulate that latitude into those adventures, into taking other risks, into so I don't know if my mom was watching, so I'm not going to get into stories. I'm going to just say, I know that life.
Yeah. And I have to say, you're not the only one who has that pang of, my mama's watching, so I'm going to have to be careful what it's
42. Talk about mind control.
Doesn't matter. But mama's mama is mama. Yeah. Kat?
So for me, Vanessa was interesting because she didn't fit with all the other kids. She just always stood out because not just because of her complexion, but there was just something odd about her that I definitely could relate to. I'm an oldest as well, so it wasn't so much. So being invisible wasn't an option for me. But there's a point in some of the seasons where, because if you look, her body, it's like one season she looked like a child, and the next season she looked like a grown woman.
Yeah.
And she developed, and you could see that it was awkward. Like the styling for her showed that she was uncomfortable with it. And I could absolutely relate to your body maturing in ways that you're not ready for, particularly because I was an athlete. So, big boobs were just getting in the way of my entire life. And I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with these things. And so watching her try to navigate herself in terms of her physical body, because if you think about it, she was probably like stature wise, she had the biggest stature of all the girls. And so she was invisible, and she was kind of ignored. So I never saw her rebellion as an act of, I always saw it as a cry for help. Like for me, it felt like she was doing these things not because she was necessarily curious, but she was like, y'all are not paying attention to me.
Yeah.
Like, let's see how far I can push this before you realize that I'm not here. And so there were ways those are the ways that I really related. And the from the moment of her sculptural hair, like I remember the first time I saw that cosmic ass hair, and I was like, oh my God, this is bold. And I was like, what high school kid is walking around with hair like this? This is amazing. And I was completely enamored because she was rocking her natural hair when rocking your natural hair at that time wasn't a thing.
Who was doing that? I had a jerry curl. I ain't gonna lie. I was rocking a bow when old girl was doing the sculptured hair. I mean,
and so she was doing this, and it was like it was such a subtle and powerful statement. And when you watch the Cosby Show, they were very heavy-handed. You're going to get this, Sammy Davis. You're going to learn about Romare Bearden. You're going to learn about, South Africa. But that hair, oh my God, that was such an act of resistance. Particularly when you looked at her parents and Claire's aesthetic, I was like, whatever's going on here, I'm here for it.
Yeah, yeah. More Tolliver women over there. Tell us what you're thinking.
I think Vanessa had the best balance out of all the kids. I think Denise was a wild child, and that was it. And Sandra was smart, and that was it. And Rudy was precocious, and that was it. And Vito was the guy, and that was. But Vanessa was able to embody many of those characteristics, and I think that balance for me made her the most authentic. And I think too, I can see the parallels in my life because of the extremes. Everything I did felt like it was to the 10th degree. And my mom would roll her eyes every time I got pregnant again. She's like, again with that? Y'all ain't done? So, and there to me was Vanessa. Every time it was all the way to the left, all the way to the right, kind of never, you know what I mean? So, and then moving to Abu Dhabi, nobody in my family knew could point to it in a map. So it was always something extreme. And I think with Vanessa, having embodied all those characteristics kind of gave her those dimensions for me.
Yeah. Dahleah, you want to chime in with anything before I go into my feelings about Vanessa?
Well, I think that your the way that you depicted her really changed how I'm going to view her from now on when the reruns come on. Because when it came to the cute, darker skinned person, they really projected that to be Rudy. And Rudy was a more acceptable version of Vanessa, like how you wrote it. Her hair was a bit more acceptable. Her attitude, her sassiness, everything was just cute. And Vanessa was kind of the unsung hero. She was kind of the supporting character when she never should have been. She was much more dynamic than what was written for her.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, Marie Whitten was my high school track coach. And so when she said she remembered that jerry curl, she is literally talking about and how I presented during that time. And she's definitely still a mentor. And she probably, remembers that jerry curl. I hated Vanessa. I hated Vanessa with everything in my whole body when that show aired. Because in a half-hour episode of voyeurism, I didn't want to see my own life. I didn't want to see anyone who resembled me because I watched a family who had more. I watched a family who We had joy in my house. My grandmother, my mom, my aunt, my siblings. We lived in a trailer home in the mountains in Virginia. And that village in Coesville, Virginia was my blanket. It was my haven. And my childhood, I really wouldn't change anything about it. But because Vanessa was so close to me, I didn't want to see anything that resembled my actual existence on that show. And I held Vanessa and I held Tempest Bledsoe accountable for that. I was unremarkable. I was invisible. And it wasn't until I saw, and actually I saw Whoopi Goldberg's one woman show on Broadway.
Ooh, that thing was fire.
A little after the Cosby Show started. And what Whoopi did prior to The Color Purple was showed me that awkward, dark skin, ugly is important. That's how I felt at the time. I'm not saying that's who they were, but that's how I felt. Always being in an honors class, being the only Black kid in a class, being the tallest. I was a foot taller than everyone else for a long time. I had an interest in Prince when everybody was all about Michael Jackson. I was different to the point of duress. And I hated Vanessa because she was me, and I didn't have the wherewithal to see how important we both were, how valued we both were when she was there. It wasn't until she went to Baltimore to see The Wretched, that I had a relationship with Vanessa that then changed. She took a risk for a level of joy and adventure that we didn't really see any of the other kids take, number one. And we saw someone who gained a reaction out of Clair that was suddenly very much like the experiences I knew. I knew a mother who was incredibly loving and was my shield, was my protector, but still didn't know until I was almost 30 that I had been sexually molested as a child. I was the daughter of a woman who gave us whoopings. I got my last whooping when I was 9 years old, but I distinctly remember that $3 and quarters I stole from my grandmother's purse that earned me that last whooping. And she was like, "You the broad that just stole from my mom, and we need to have a talk." And that episode where Clair jumped at Vanessa, I aligned myself with Vanessa then. I knew who she was. I knew the experience that she had. And it took a long time to not be jealous of light-skinned girls or girls who were closer to the height of the boys I had crushes on in middle and high school. And so in writing this piece with Vanessa and for Vanessa, I found out that she, for me, was the strongest of the Huxtable clan. That no other character could confront Clair. When Clair read the room wrong twice. When Clair said, "Are you okay?" and Vanessa said, "No, my dad's dead." The fuck kind of question is that? Like, are you okay? The repass of my father's funeral, you read the room wrong. No, I'm not okay. You need to me first. You need to take care of me and not always be the pillar of strength and be the strong one. And then when she said, "Well, who did it? Why is that the concern?" And then she said, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "No, I was." And so the whole point of all that was to illustrate that Vanessa reads the room in a way that no other character did. And her relationship with Clair was one where you knew that they loved each other, but you weren't certain they always liked each other.
Right.
And I just want to say thank you to the character that was Vanessa, but the performance that Tempest Bledsoe gave to that character, because she breathed life in a version of myself I didn't know belonged on television. And so with that, we'll put a pin in our hearts exploding right now. I know mine feels like it's exploding. And I want to ask the women who have not been a part of the panel so far, who is your favorite Huxtable? And which Huxtable, if it's a different Huxtable, which one were you most like? Verta.
So, my favorite Huxtable was Theo. And I just think because he, I don't know, he just kind of was very carefree, kind of clueless, and it was a way that I wish that I could be. And what was the second question? Because I'm kind of like so caught up in the emotional.
And then if it's a different character, which Huxtable are you most like, or were you most like?
Definitely most like Vanessa. I was grateful for Vanessa on television because I wanted to see myself, and I'm a twin, and I'm the twin that is more questioning, right? So I'm the twin that would come downstairs for church, the child that would come downstairs in jeans and a t-shirt and say I was ready to go to church. And my mom was like, no, you're not. And I would be like, God accepts everyone just how they are. And I would do that at like 10. So I felt very akin to Vanessa. So I think that we're very similar. And I feel really grateful for this experience. I wasn't sure I wanted to do this. I was really nervous because I think this is live. This is not like, oh, I'm talking about, this is very different than just like a panel in a room where it's like these 35 or these whatever people. And I am really grateful because there are not enough spaces right now for me as a Black woman that does the work that I do to be with other Black women in solidarity, in recognition and in seeing, and kind of in knowing and in decolonizing, like having this candid conversation about how we want to show up differently in the world tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because we're in a moment that we've never been anti-racist. We don't know. It's beautiful because we get to make it whatever we want. And so I feel really fortunate. I'm very happy. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, sister. Thank you. Imani, your favorite Huxtable, and if it's a different character, the one you were most like.
Well, it's funny because Verta and I have a similar take. I liked Theo because he was a clown and he was interested in joy. And my family, let me tell you, everybody in my family is a comedian. Like even my grandmother, she got jokes. She had jokes for you. So I think it would be Theo at the time. However, because I grew up enduring a lot of abuse, so there was the sexual abuse, there was also physical abuse, and really violent emotional abuse. I didn't really have a sense of self. So if I look back at it, I think that I kind of saw myself as an amalgamation of all of them. Like there was something very ethereal about the character Lisa Bonet played, and I could relate to the silliness and joy and fun part of Theo, the indigo child that I recognized in Vanessa, the inner child of me in Rudy. So I think that the one I related to is a created one that is an amalgamation of all of those characters, because I really struggled even to identify what my clothing style was for so long, because that's how pernicious the emotional abuse was I suffered as a child. I remember I would get dressed to go out young in my teens, and I would go hang out with friends and I would get dressed. And, look, I love my mom now. We are such best friends, but we grew up together. My mom had me when she was 16. You think about that. 16.
Yeah.
Bye. You can't parent anybody, not well. So we struggled, and she struggled through her own pains. And so right when I would be going out the house, the friends are outside waiting for me. My mom, I would get to the door and she'd be like, "That's what you're wearing?" Which is not even a real question, right? Because I literally have it on my body. I am walking out the door. So that's not like a real question. That's something else goes into what the hell you got on.
Yeah.
the shame and guilt and like I felt so I couldn't even identify my own style. So they asked me who I saw myself as. I wasn't one person.
Yeah.
I had never been. I was at the same time, I was very popular in school and then also felt very lonely and otherized and outside. So I always dealt with that kind of duality. I was revered and hated at the same time. My body was desired and disgusting at the same time.
Yeah.
So I didn't know myself until I was about 30. I didn't like myself till I was about 40.
See?
And now I'm like having a real love affair.
Wow. I just love Imani. Velicia, tell us who is your favorite Huxtable, and if different, who you most like?
I already did mine.
You did?
Yeah, I've Vanessa and Vanessa. I've always said
yeah.
that.
That's right.
I'm not switching up. Same
while we still there, Dahleah, she said, "We just this is what it is."
I would say mine is Denise, and I think much of that has to do with the fact that I was more into a different world, and Cosby Show was kind of like it wasn't as popular when I was young. I really didn't care, but like going to an HBCU, Howard, everyone. Like those are the types of shows that we talk about. We talk about a different world and then movies or school days and things like that. So Denise, of course, was prominent for the first season of that. But it was also her character looking back on the show. She was a rebel and she was unpredictable. And I think my mom would agree, like the whole going to Africa, that's literally my life. Like
Honduras. Yeah.
Right. Like just waking up one day and deciding I'm gonna go leave the country, and I don't know when I'll be back. I don't know how I'm gonna get there. I'm just gonna go. And then I think Denise brought home a Jamaican guy, or she brought home some guy that was just like who does that, and I just identify with that so much.
Yeah.
Your mama does too. She's like, yeah.
Wow. Well, we heard the answers from Kat and from Tiffany and from Velicia, apparently, which I completely forgot. If you want to know their answers, then I want you to go back and watch previous episodes of this series. It's not discounting their answers at all, but you should just go back and check them out from previous episodes and hear what these brilliant women had to say on some of the earlier topics. And then tune in again as we continue to do this series and hear from some of these same amazing people as we move forward. I want to thank everyone who was a part of this panel. I love y'all so much. Thank you for, tell you what, Laura, bring them back for just one quick second, because I want to look at them when I say thank you. Thank you for the vulnerability, for the safe space that we created tonight, not just for us in these 6 panes, but for anyone who was watching, kind of keeping an eye on the meter of how many people are watching. We had a pretty substantial group of people watching tonight and reacting and responding. We want to thank everyone who gave their stories and testimonies in the live chat. It's not easy to kind of, rip open all the things and make yourself exposed and exist with the nerve endings out there in the free. But it is also relieving to know that you're not alone when you finally do that. And so I just want to thank this panel for participating in a beautiful night tonight. And what we're going to do at divablueproductions.com is have a page of resource numbers and contacts that if you need any sort of help, if you want to send up the white flag or ring the triangle or make a phone call, there's going to be a litany of contacts. We're going to dedicate a full-on corner of Diva Blue Productions website with just a load of resources by state. If wherever you are, anything you need, you're going to have some information there for you. You're going to have a means to contact the women that are a part of this panel. previous people from previous panels, and of course, panels to come, because the people that I have asked to be a part of this experience are not just random folk off the street and be like, hey, can you come talk to us for about an hour or two about a thing? Some people who can really impact the safety and love of your life. Okay. We're going to then wrap it up because we've been here for a couple hours now. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Come back on Monday. Join us Monday when we finally introduce to you the man who will be portraying the role of Cliff. We are bringing Cliff to life so that we can eventually kill him. On Monday, June 15th, we are reading chapter 6, Elvin. We are looking at the character of Elvin, who will be portrayed by my son, Jeremiah Rice. Michelle and I have a beautiful, beautiful young man in our life. It's her son by birth, but my son by marriage. I have claimed this young man as an integral part of my life, and he's an amazing Elvin. He had Laura and I jumping up and down yesterday during rehearsal because he's just brilliant. So Jeremiah Rice will be portraying the role of Elvin on Monday, and Daryl Johnson. Look, let me tell you, nope, just come on Monday. Just come on Monday and see Daryl Johnson for yourself. Daryl is an amazing person here in the Houston area. I've come to know him quite well, and he lends his voice as Cliff, the patriarch of the family. And then the discussion that we will have after the reading, battling imposter syndrome. Looking at what it means to slip into the shoes of someone else, or following behind someone else, or feeling maybe that you're not adequate enough to do a thing in the world. We want to dispel those notions that as Black people in the world, we do not have to look anywhere else for the template of our success. We are complete. And that panel will include Monique Thomas. She will make a return and join our conversation. Dr. Stella Smith. She will also return with the Mach 3 Center at Prairie View A&M University. Justin Key. Justin is an entrepreneur and artist out of LA. He's a former student of mine, but he has made himself his own path in the world and is inspiring other filmmakers and creative entrepreneurs how to find the money to do the things they're most passionate about. Stephen, with all of the letters of his last name. I'm going to take the time to continue to learn how to say his last name without messing it up. In the meantime, in between time, my guy Stephen, who is a cohort member with me in the PhD program at Prairie View, Stephen O, is going to be a part of that panel. And his area of research is, in fact, battling imposter syndrome. And Dr. Greta Blackwell, who's a colleague of mine, also within the languages and communication department at Prairie View, she will be joining us on the panel as well. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We love you fiercely. We love you. We love you. We love you. Take the care you need over this weekend. I suspect things will not get any easier in the days to come, given the things that are happening in the world, but do love yourself and take great, great care. Have a great weekend. We'll see you guys later. Bye, y'all.